This has always been, always, all ways. And not just all ways that are conceived or cognized, thought about, conjured, stated by what apparently appears to be a human, corporeal, local qualia consciousness energy form that expresses using one of many languages. And the self-conjured conjure self believes in what it knows. It cannot understand how this simply is everything and no thing or nothing inseparable. Absolutely everything that apparently appears to arise as it appears. It is appearing, but not to, by, for, and from anybody. For no reasons, meanings, or purposes other than of its own accord and volition. And even that is undefinable and unknowable as well. In a sense, this, that is everything and nothing inseparable, or often referred to as the absolute, is absolutely everything and no thing, inseparably so and not so, as an apparent appearance of infinitudinal complexification. It is and it isn't. The human corporeal form claims, and it can claim, and has claimed, and will continue to claim, that it is and it is not. It continues to claim based on what it believes it knows. Whatever it believes it knows, it acts upon. It acts upon that which it believes it knows. And every action that a human corporeal local unit of qualia consciousness energy form that apparently appears as a human form, humanly corporeal, is apparently appearing as simply an appearance in space and time and not of space and time. In space and time, in the sense that that which can appear can only appear, seemingly so and not so, in space and time. But it is thought via cognizing. A body mind cognizes it. It thinks about it, entertains ideas that it knows that it is separate. It believes that. It believes that it is separate from everybody and everything else. It believes that it owns and it can proclaim its own body, its own mind. This is my body. It claims it. This is my body, this is my mind, therefore, this is my life. These are my experiences that I'm having. I'm having these experiences because I know it. And life is all about my knowing and my doing. I can take action based on what I know. It was not always that way. It never was that way. The body-mind had been moving with these actions as a body-mind. So in a sense, the body-mind is a representation of what? That which is referred to as humanly corporeal. But is it humanly corporeal? Is the body-mind humanly corporeal just because it is stated to, by, for, and from a body-mind? No. That does not make that exclusively so. It is both. It is both exclusively so and not so. Simultaneously at the same time. Well, how can that be? It's not how. It's just the way it is. It's been that way. How can it be? No. It's not how it can be. It is the way it has always been. It's always been the way that it appears to be. Absolutely everything and nothing inseparable. Always, always, any way that can be entertained as an observable appearance of absolutely everything. That observable appearance, this observable appearance of absolutely everything, the absolute, appears and arises as absolutely everything. And absolutely everything is not exclusively everything. See, it is everything and nothing, and no thing. It's both simultaneously. How is that so? It does not require a how. It's undefinable. It's unknowable. The absolute is absolutely, entirely, absolutely everything and nothing. Infinitudinal complexification. And even by stating that in any language, the expression to explain the absolute, it's inexplicable, it's incomprehensible, it's undefinable, it's unknowable. The only illusion, the only impermanent arising of an appearance is the human corporeal form that is claiming and expressing, using a language to claim and proclaim that it knows and that it does. It knows what it's doing. Therefore, since it knows what it's doing, it's going to continue to be doing anything, absolutely anything that it can entertain as an action, as an activity. See, I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part because I belong to a societal structure. I belong to society. I go along with the rules and regulations. I go along with paying my taxes. I say my taxes because I earned my money. Notice, see how locked in and how convincingly so that is? Because it has repetitively believed that it took action ever since this. And what this simply was the beginning, yes, the actual beginning of a story of a body-mind, of a human corporeal form. It began to do this. And then other conjured selves. These were just body minds. They were innocent body minds. Innocent in the sense that it did not know anything, no concepts, no subjectivities or objectivities. It did not know what this was. It was told. It was told, the body mind was told that it is separate and unique and has a name, a birth name, and a birthright. In some way, somehow, as a societal structure, had been conjured. Absolutely everything that what is referred to as the human race, the appearance of a human corporeal form that is thought to be and known to be a human corporeal form, has been perpetuated via institutions of education, academia. And that has been reinforced in a societal structure since it is incorporated with absolutely any body mind that is born. Now, what is born? See, absolutely anything that appears was believed and thought to be required as an identification of something. Something that is visually seen via a body mind that facilitates sight. It has the visual field that it can observe. Therefore, it believes it is its own observer of a visual field. The visual field is the world out there that's separate from me. And in that separation, it was learned and perpetuated via these conjurings. The conjurings are all the entertainments of ideas, thought patternings, thought waves, thought forms, if using euphemisms or metaphors of a scientific leaning or persuasion, then these terminologies, these terms, these words will be expressed and will be used whenever a body mind is expressing with the English language. But whenever a body mind is expressing, it is thought to be expressing with its own thoughts and ideas that are original. It believes in its own self-identification ever since it was doing this. It was told by others, other appearances of body minds that appear just as it does, and it learned that. But it was a gradual process. It was thought to be a learning process that was necessary. And the necessity behind this learning process was to identify itself. The self-identification began that way. It was neither right or wrong. It was just simply thought to be, or presumed to be, something that apparently appears to be the way that it is to, by, for, and from a human corporeal body mind. The infant that is referred to as an infant, that is in its innocence, when it is born, it is referred to as being born or introduced into the world or into this reality. This reality is thought to be exclusively so. See, it's in the thinking. It is thought to be. If it was not thought to be, then what would this be? This would simply be what it apparently appears to be, as an apparent appearance of absolutely everything and nothing inseparable. That's the absolute. It's always been that way. It's always been this way. And it always will be this way. No matter how many theories that the astrophysicist conjures. Regardless of that, that will not ever change the apparent appearance of absolutely everything and nothing inseparable. The infinitudinal complexification of absolutely everything and nothing inseparable is an apparent appearance of infinitudinal complexification. Always, always, any way that can be conceived, even those ways that are inconceivable. The absolute is absolutely everything and nothing is separable. Ad infinitum. It's always been this way, it always will be this way. And the apparent appearance of space and time is apparently appearing to be identified as a layout, or as a platform, or a foundation, or an appearance as though it's a setup. But that's just an apparent appearance. Why is it just an apparent appearance? How is it an apparent appearance? See, the body-mind needs to know. It has this yearning, this curiosity. It must seek out understandings, knowings, a knowledge base. It needs to gather information. It needs to form it into a formation of some type. That is the baseline of information. Breaking down that term. In formation. So it is thought to be that absolutely everything that appears is forming. That it is of form. And that it is permanently of form. See, it's that belief in permanence. It's that belief in physicality. It's that belief in exclusivity of physicality that I have a mind of my own. Therefore, I can think about what I am. And what I am is what I think about, what I know. If I didn't know what I know, then how can I be what I know I am? You see? Well, that is easily unraveled. Via what? Self-realization. Are there any exercises, are there any spiritual teachings required for self-realization? Well, the guru was conjured, and that's how spiritual teachings began. And in ancient India, the Gitas were written. These were some of the very first spiritual teachings. Upanishads, the Upanishads and the Gitas, from an area on the planet known as India, and is so named India. Absolutely everything that is seen as though it is something separate, it has never been that way. And yet, language was put together and conjured so that body minds can self-perpetuate activities of doings. And then it could learn to know about those doings. And that's how they go hand in hand. That is part of duality. That is part of separation. That which is part of all dualities of separation is not the absolute. Although it is included with the absolute, it is not exclusively that way. It is not exclusively so, whereby each separate body-mind can proclaim and have and take ownership separately from absolutely everything else. No, it is all coalesced. It's mixing. It's constantly mixing and coalescing. It will appear as a mixture, just as light and darkness are merged. They appear to be merged, light and darkness. The absence of light is what? Darkness. The absence of darkness is light. There is no absence of neither, since both are always appearing. Light and darkness. Light apparently appears to be brighter than darkness, but it is the brightness of light that creates this contrast. And if you get into, if one is to get into that, when I say one, if a body mind is going to entertain these ideas of science, it is not going to go anywhere. All subjectivities and objectivities that are expressed by a body mind have no meanings, reasons, and purposes behind them. Why? Why and how is that so? Because there is also not so. That's why. Because it is why and why not. It is how and how it is not. It is and it is not. It is both. It sounds like a paradox. It sounds like a conundrum, but it is neither. It's neither a conundrum or not a conundrum. It is absolutely everything and nothing, inseparable. Always, always. It does not require meanings, reasons, and purposes for absolutely everything to be both everything and nothing inseparable. It is simply the absolute. That's it. That is it. Now, is the body mind satisfied with that? Never. Of course not. No. Why is it not satisfied? Because it still believes that it has to know. It still believes that it has to seek that which it feels is required to know. That which it believes it must know. It must continue to seek to find absolutely everything that is discoverable or can be known. Everything that can be knowable to, by, for, and from itself. It creates its own limitations. There are no such things as limitations because there are no parameters. There are no boundaries to absolutely anything. Nothing has a boundary. Nothing has a parameter. Nothing has an edge or an end to it. Absolutely everything and nothing is both. No beginning and no end. The Alpha and Omega. That's inconceivable. It's incomprehensible. It's unknowable. It doesn't require an understanding to know that. Knowing and doing were never required to simply be. And to simply be is an automatic response that requires no interferences, no impositions, no imposing upon that which is freely moving about as energy. Radically free energy. That's absolutely everything and nothing inseparable. Radically free energy. No parameters, no boundaries, no edges, no meanings, reasons, and purposes, no rule sets, nothing of constrictions, nothing that will interfere. There are no interference patterns. Interference patterns are thoughts to be created, and they're conceived as though, well, I'm not interfering with everything because I'm over here, okay? I'm in my own fixed position. See, this is the way that the conjured self conjures this way of thinking, these beliefs. It thinks in this way. I'm over here minding my own business. I'm sitting in this chair. I'm minding my own business. Then what is the other business going on around me? Oh, that's the business of life going on. But I have my life over here, and the business of life is going on all around me. Oh yeah, and I do see other body minds. I do see other people. There's another person that lives next door to me. He's my neighbor. You see, all of these dualities and all of these thoughts and ideas about separation, they have been simply subjectivities and objectivities that are thought to be exclusively that way. Exclusively so. All the dualities that it ever entertained. The body mind entertains all types of dualities. It lives in that kind of reality, in that type of reality. It believes it's living a life of its own in that manner, in that way. How? How and why is that seemingly so? It is seemingly so because the body mind had learned that. The body mind learned at that point. Now, if we refer it to space and time, although space and time is an illusion, it's impermanence, it's Maya, it's the impermanence, and yet it is not exclusively that way. It is both. So there's the impermanence, the appearance of impermanence, and then there's also the appearance of permanence, or that which is seemingly permanent, or physical. Just because a body mind does this does not mean that it's rubbing its own fingers. It is only believed to be that, the rubbing of fingers, and that these are mine. See, it's all these proclamations of self-identification with the self that creates what? That creates these interference patterns. If there's anything that's delusional and illusional, or that which is exclusively conjured, that which is exclusively conjured is self-identification with its own self, with separation. I'm here in a fixed position in space and time, and you are over there in a fixed position of space and time, in your own time and space. See? Even that's claimed. To that degree is separation apparently appearing to be reinforced in such beliefs, such strong beliefs of separation and self-identification. To that degree. I'm holding my own space. I will do what I please in my own time. See, even space and time is claimed. Even space and time is claimed by the conjured self. But it doesn't notice that because it's too busily engaged in what it believes it needs to be busily engaged with. Activities. All manners of activities. All types of physical activities that it conjures to, by, for, and from itself. That's obviously separation. But it doesn't know any better. It doesn't know any different. It believes it knows the truth. And then it does refer to truth. And it believes in that truth wholeheartedly, whatever that truth might be. And there are innumerable truths to entertain. Just as there are innumerable falsities. Truth and false. True. What's true and what's false? See, there's a duality again. What's right and what's wrong? What's left and what's right? Even with direction. Even with direction and fixed positions. That's duality. That's dual. That's a dual nature. Of yours and mine. Of day and night. Of black and white. See? Those are just dualities. But it's neither. It's neither permanently the way that it seems to be. It is both. It is both the way that something seems to be, and something can also seemingly not to be, because it's both. It is and it is not. It sounds like a conundrum. It sounds like a paradox. But that's what it wants to call. See, the self-conjured self even wants to call that which is both so and not so. It wants to call that a paradox. Why? Because it wants to name. Why does it have this strong urge to name and categorize and place information of that which it believes it's forming? It's forming its own formation. That which is the absolute is already forming its own formation, however it will arise and appear. But that information that's forming, that information of the absolute, that kind of information is unknowable. That type of information can never be conceivable, known, knowable, defined. No, it's undefinable, it's unknowable, it's incomprehensible. Just simply is incomprehensible. But is it exclusively that way? No, because there is still that which is knowable, that which is observable, that which can be referred to. But once something is identified, then what is it? What does it apparently appear to be happening there, or happening? What is interfering with the absolute that's already perfect, whole, complete, perfect balance? Everything and nothing, inseparable, that's contained. It apparently appears to be contained within space and time, but it is both. It is not only observable in space and time, but it's also unobservable timelessly. Timelessly and boundlessly. No parameters, no boundaries, no time. It only apparently appears to be seemingly so. But it's not exclusively seemingly so. It's both so and not so. You can't just leave out the so-ness, and you can't just leave out the not so-ness. It's both. So, in space and time, it is thought via the self-conjured self 2 by 4 and from itself that this action or activity that apparently appears to be identified as that this is activity, that can be known. And that is how and why it seems to be the origins of how self-identification and separation and individuality began, that it had that point of the beginning, that it developed it, that it conjured it for itself, 2 by 4 and from itself, in agreement. And so it just naturally agreed because it was reinforced. Every time a body-mind would appear, an innocent baby doing that movement. And then as the brain of the body-mind began to develop further, then it began to seemingly have a capacity to do what? To know, to learn. How would it learn? Somehow it learns. It learns in such a way that a development of a mind gathers information. And when it gathers information, it begins to conjure these ideas and beliefs that cause that body mind to question itself. And it goes, oh, what is this? And then it is told by a body mind that was born before it and was already in space and time, although not of space and time, but in space and time. That energetic principle, the spirit or the soul, the essence. It's been referred to in various words. See, taking absolutely everything and turning it into a subject that can be talked about or discussed, that's always been seemingly what a body mind does. It seems to be that a body mind begins to believe that it needs to gather information to know about itself, 2 by 4 and from itself. It seems to be a natural response. That a body mind is going to respond in a particular way. And the manner by which a body mind responds is based on what is exposed to. The exposure is not intentional. The exposure is simply the coalescing, the mixing, the blending of energetic movements that it has always been a part of. So you see, just because it's a body-mind appearance does not make that an exclusive, single, separate body-mind appearance. It is only thought to be that way. See, this is why it has been described by a neo-Advaitin with the birth theme and birthright of Paul Hederman. He has said, the self cannot get out of the self, and whatever can be perceived is not what's perceiving. And although a body-mind put together these statements are referring to Advaita Vedanta, non-duality. It's simply factual information that is being shared. You, you cannot have both because they cannot be contained as a separate happening or separate occurrence. It's all mixed together. It cannot be isolated. It cannot be extracted from absolutely everything. And you'll take something out of absolutely everything and turn it into something else. Well, I have something now. I have something here. So I need to figure out what I have here now. Because I took it out of everything. Everything is out there. And here I am. And so I'm going to take something out of everything that's out there. So everything that's out there is a separate world or reality. And I need to join it somehow. You know, nobody has to do anything. Nobody has to join what is out there. Because what apparently appears to be out there as a reality or a world is separate from the body mind. It's not. It only thought that. Why? Because it learned this. Oh, hands connected to arms. I have two hands, two arms. Oh, I have a body, I have a torso. Oh, I have a head, I have a face. And legs and feet. Oh, these are mine. Oh. Well, what am I? Oh, you are a special person. And you know how special you are? You have a name and a birthright. That's what makes you very unique and special. Different and special from everybody else. Oh, they too have a name, and they also have a birthright, and they were born in a certain place in the world, on the planet. See, all separation. Is that purposely, intentionally done to be as though it's some kind of conspiracy, as though it's some kind of secret that's imparted to you? It's imparted to each person that's born. Is that purposely done? No. It's just a natural response. These natural responses and reactions of body minds were simply thought to be that which needs to be done. See, it's always in the doing and the knowing. It's always about the knowing and the doing. Well, I did this the other day. I know I did it because, well, how do you know you did it? Well, I could tell. I mean, I performed an action. I did that. I claimed to do that. I'm taking responsibility of my own life, okay? So I'm sure you're doing the same. So you see, each body mind is thought to be separate, and that each body mind is living their own life and having their own experiences. How does it seem to be owned and claimed and separate that way? Easily figured out. It's obvious. It's obvious, isn't it? How and why is it obvious? Well, if I say that I know what I am, just because I say I know it, is that really true? See? There's all types of ways to catch that. To catch the self-conjured, conjured self in the act of self-identification, to by, for, and from itself. There are many ways. Because remember, why? Why are there many ways? How are there many ways? Because the absolute is absolutely everything and nothing inseparably so and not so. That is always, always. So no matter what that way might be that the body-mind believes that it knows, is one of innumerable ways to believe that it knows that. So that which is knowable is information that has no boundaries as well. Information is informing the body mind of the formations that apparently appear to be forming around it. See, it takes information and then it tries to figure it out. It tries to know about it, to by, for, and from itself, because it still believes that it needs to know. It believes that it has to know. And that's what reinforces the activity of seeking. And so, this seeking energy, or this propensity, or this urge, this yearning to seek, that stems from what? It stems from the need to know. The curiosity. Where does the curiosity stem from? Well, I need to figure it out. I need to know it. Well, why do you need to know something? Well, because if I don't know it, how am I going to figure it out? Well, what are you trying to figure out? Oh, I'm trying to figure out about how and why my life is turning out a certain way. I'm trying to figure out, well, am I making the right choices in my life? See, nobody has to make any choices about anything. Choices aren't made. Yes, choices apparently appear to be happening just as the natural responses. Does the heartbeat, is that a choice for the heartbeat to be beating in a body mind? No, that's not a choice. See, that's just one of many examples to use here to explain. Because why? The conjured self requires explanations. Well, I don't understand, so I'm going to go to a satsang and I need to ask the guru because I don't know any better. No, you already know. You just think you don't know. See, there it is again. It's in the apprehension of thinking and cognizing. It's recognizing that you have never been separate. You are not a separate being, separate from everything else, everybody and everything else. No, of course not. No. See, that body mind only thought that. It only entertained that idea. Eventually, that'll fall away. That'll collapse. Eventually, it's going to collapse to, by, for, and from every single body mind on this planet and throughout the infinite universe. Earth-like planets throughout the infinite universe, the same course of action is going to be taken. It's universal. It's infinitesimal complexification. It is inevitable. It's inevitable to, by, for, and from absolutely every single body mind. It may not apparently appear to be happening at a certain point in time of the indeterminate duration in space and time of the appearance of a body mind. However, at some point, some stage in the temporal temporariness, by the way, although space and time is unreal and it's an illusion, it is temporally temporary. How is it temporally temporary? Well, time is temporal, and temporary is the impermanence. It is temporary. It's not the only way that a body mind is going to appear. It constantly apparently appears to change. And what is the change? It has been referred to as entropy, or gradual diminishment of an energetic movement. It apparently appears to have a certain indeterminate duration of a lifespan. What would be a lifespan? Well, it is likened to, I'll give you an example. See, give me an example because I'm asking, I need to know. See, okay, all right. See, so what has been going on? Seemingly to unravel, to explain the collapse, to explain that which you thought you were, you never were that. You never were that body mind. It was provided a birth name, a birthright, a birth certificate that you carry around with you all the time, some form of identification. All of that was simply to, by, for, and from the groups of cell-conjured cells that are reinforcing and are part of what is referred to as a societal structure. There's society. Join society. Be part of it or don't. either way, this way, that way, or some other way to live a life. No, none of that's going to matter. It never did matter, and it never will matter. Why? Why will it never matter? Because it was never the way that it was thought to be in the first place. Sooner or later, every single body mind will recognize this. Will recognize this. Recognize what? That it's not separate. That it's part of the absolute. It always has been. It's been coalescing, mixing, binding, and blending, and continuously doing it automatically. Automatically. And that's the part of beingness. It's another way of saying, you know what? You are. And you don't have to know why or how. Because there is no why or how. There never was a why or how. Just be. Let it be. Because you're already naturally being anyway. Well, how am I being? Am I doing anything about my being? No. Do I need to know about my being? No. Yeah, well, maybe I have to find a spiritual book. It might tell me more about my beingness. And I can learn more about, consciousness. I'm told that absolutely everything is consciousness. There's this non-duality in science conferences that are held, and there's these groups of people, that are getting together, and they're having these panels and these talks, and oh, that's not necessary. But why is it going on? Because, well, why is it going on? It appears to be going on. Why? Because I need to know. I'm questioning. I want to know. Why is it like? Why is this way? Why is that way? All the dualities. Why are they that way? There had to be some kind of beginning or source or in some origin. I need to know about the points of origins. I'm going to go as far back as I can to gather the evidence so that I can know. Then maybe I'll know enough that will be satisfying. Hopefully, and then my seeking will stop. No, you never had to do the seeking to begin with. You don't need to know about anything. Nothing needs to be known. Just simply be. And there's all these activities that a body mind believes it has to seek. No, it doesn't need to do anything about everything. Nobody needs to do anything about everything, and nothing is inseparable. No, that's the absolute. Just leave it alone. Enough already, right? There has to be enough. Enough of what? Well, there isn't enough of anything, really, because everything is both real and unreal, observable and observable, knowable and unknowable, to, by, for, and from nobody, for no meaning, reason, or purpose other than of its own accord and volition. The absolute is going to naturally appear however it will appear. And no matter... Oh. I should capture this because I've been doing that. What I've been doing? Well, just capturing, just using it as, decoration for the YouTube presentations. Get away, Steffi, butt up. Where's Molly? Up, up, up. Crazy Steffi. Ah! Let's see if this one's any good. Okay, I was just capturing a sunrise out the window here. Sunrises and sunsets. Decoration for the YouTube presentations. That's all that is. Just use original graphics. That way you don't accidentally infringe on someone else's copyrighted material. See, it's gone even down to that. I took a picture outside my window? No. I just took a picture of scenery, of nature. A sunrise, of what is referred to as a sunrise. Okay. Let me just send this via email. Okay, keep original. Which one's the Outlook? That's the Outlook. There. On the subject line, Sunday, 15th. September 2019. Okay. And send. That should be it right there. And that will be the picture that we used for that. Pardon? No, you didn't part. That was just a wooden chair going across the floor.
This meeting is about what is, which is a very misleading statement, because it sounds like it's about something that there's an object that this meeting is about. This meeting is about what is. Which is a very misleading statement, because it sounds like it's about something that there's an object that this meeting is about.
Well, there are no meetings. It apparently appears to be meetings that are happening, but no, it's not really that way. See, to, by, for, and from a conjured self, a meeting can apparently appear to be taking place. That's just an appearance, as though there's a meeting taking place. That's not really happening. nothing happens. Everything is an appearance of appearances of the Absolute. The Absolute is appearing as absolutely everything and nothing inseparable. But there is no meaning, reason, and purpose behind it. No meanings, reasons, and purposes given to that which appears. So that which appears is just apparently appearing as appearances of absolutely everything and nothing inseparable. Always, always.
So what is the question. There's actually no answer to that. There might be an experience that one would say, what is what's happening to me. So for me, what is sitting in the room, hearing this weird guy talk, being with other people, hearing the cars go by, seeing the sun. That would be the experience for the individual or for the perceiver of what. That's not actually what's being pointed to in this meeting. What's being pointed to is that what is not an object. It's not knowable. It's not a perception. It's not even what is. It's what is and isn't.
Yep. What is and is not.
Now, it sounds like a paradox because words are objects, are concepts. So they just appear to be things. And what we're pointing to is no thing that appears to be a thing. Words are very limited when it comes to that. So really what we're talking about is beyond the words. The words are in a sense pointers. So we're pointing to sound as stillness, an object as unicity, as movement as everything, or the absolute. It's not a paradox. It's just unknowable, non-objectifiable. And that non-objectifiable, which we're suggesting, is all there is. There isn't anything else. That non-objectifiable, which is this happening, is literally unconditional love, is literally home, peace beyond conception.
Peace beyond conception. Where have we heard this before? Peace beyond conception. That's another way of saying the peace that surpasses all understanding, isn't it? Sure it is. The peace that surpasses all understanding. How can peace surpass understanding? Oh, that's easy. That's an easy one, isn't it? Because an understanding is not required for peace to simply be peace. Just as compassion, just as unconditional love. It doesn't require an understanding to be that, to be just as it is. Just however it arises, to whatever degree it might arise. Now, does anything appear to this degree or that degree or to some other degree as a duality? No. These type of limitations and measurements, those type of parameters that are created, that is obviously conjured. The conjured self conjures parameters, limitations. It apparently appears to be interfering. It may not even realize that by conjuring ideas of parameters and degrees and limitations and conditions, those are impositions. Those are distortion patterns. That is what interferes, apparently appears to interfere. Not on purpose, but it is interfering and getting in the way of what? The natural flow of the absolute. How do we know that the absolute is flowing? No, it's just a metaphor. It's just referring to taking that which apparently appears to be happening and turning it into a satsang, a discussion, something to talk about. But there is nobody greater than somebody else to profess that they are the guru and they know more than everybody else or anybody else. And they are the guru, and you can go to the ashram of the guru, and then you can learn what that guru knows, because you are the devotee and you will follow, and it's so on and so forth. And all of that was conjured. All the religions were conjured. They really were. Is it necessary? No, it just apparently appears to be what's happening. Well, there it is again. There's that phrase again. It just apparently appears to be what's happening. Well, you can't say that it's definitely appearing to be happening in a certain way, because it's not. That's why apparent is used. That's why the word apparent is used. Because it's not permanently so, and it's not impermanently not so, exclusively so, or exclusively not so. It is both. It is so and it's not so. It's permanent and it's impermanent. It's personal and it's impersonal. Personal experiences to, by, for, and from a conjured self are not happening. Apparently appears to be that way, but in that separation, in that way of thinking, in that way of self-identification with a separate body-mind that is believed to be its own, no, that's conjured. Well, I'm living my life. This is my body. This is my mind. This is my face. This is my head. I look in the mirror. That's my own reflection. See, it's just a body-mind reflection.
Needless fulfillment. If there's someone listening to this, an individual in that body that thinks they understand the words, they'll misunderstand what's being suggested. They'll understand that this has the experience of peace beyond understanding. This has the experience of unconditional love. This knows something that doesn't know.
Yeah.
That's absolutely not what's being suggested.
Right.
What's being suggested is that what's being described will never be had.
Mm-hmm.
The seeking for it is an absolute failed effort, because it will never succeed in having what is already. Wanting to have what is already hides what's happening. Hides what is, as described. Makes it seem like something's missing. And that which hides what this is an experience. It's an experience that arises out of a contracted energy in the body. That contracted energy in the body is all-pervasive, meaning it's impossible to objectify.
Yeah.
It is literally only recognized in its completeness when it falls away.
Collapse.
That contrast makes obvious how profound the body was influenced by that contraction. And that contraction has, as a center, knowing. It functions, its gasoline, its motor runs on knowing. And knowing hides this as everything as was described.
Yeah. And knowing leads to doing. The self-conjured self lives in a reality of its own, of what it believes it to be its own life, its living. When it's just life living through it. The absolute a representation of the absolute living through that body-mind. All appearances of all body-minds is the appearance of the absolute appearing that way. So, absolutely anything that's appearing is absolutely everything that can be conceived as though it is anything. But it's not a conception. It is simply the way that it is. So however it apparently appears to be arising, that's not it. Because what is observing? A body mind is observing that. And if a body mind is observing anything that is thought to be, see, it's thought to be this way or that way, it's thought to be in a particular way, it's not it. That's conjured. See, all of that's conjured. All that's conjured to, by, for, and from a self-conjured, conjured self-body mind that believes it's living its own life of its own accord and volition, and it has free will and choice to do that. It can live its own life however it chooses, however it pleases. It can do whatever it wants to with its own body because it believes it has its own body to do what it wishes, as it pleases, to do whatever it wants to. And it's making its own choices, free will and choice. And it's always been that way, and it cannot be any other way. And there's a lot of body minds that heard the beginning of this, didn't make any sense, they left it alone. They went back and they went to their television, they turned on the sports channel again. Football game, that's what's important. Yeah. The football game is very important to the body mind. Yeah, because it feels like it's part of society. It feels like it's being involved with something that everybody else, or most other people, it can find the chances of that body mind finding somebody else that's a sports fan is very, very strong, very high. And so it does that. It doesn't want to hear this kind of talk. That's crazy talk. Those people over there are crazy. They don't know. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. See, a majority of the body minds thinking that way because the agreements have been so reinforced ever since when? Ever since the body mind was given a birth name and birthright, and then it believed that was its name, that it would carry its name on and on, because it believes it's a very special, unique, that terminal uniqueness, yeah, that self-identification with itself. I am a very special person. I know it. I have my own birth name, my own birthright. I know who I am. I made up my own mind to live my life a certain way. I have goals. I have aspirations. See? And that's how it perpetuates itself. I have goals. I have aspirations. 5 years from now, where am I going to be? You notice that at a job interview. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Think about that question. Does that matter? No. 5 years ago. 5 years ago, and it's 5 years from then. Does it matter what you're doing right now? There's always going to be a 5 years ago in there. There's always going to be a 5 years from now. Does that matter? No. Space and time? No. None of this matters in space and time. No, none of it's mattering. It's just appearances. But the body mind wants to make a story out of it. The body mind wants to separate itself so that it could justify that it is living its own life, and they could justify that it has its own life to live and its own free will and choice to spend its own life the way that it pleases, however that might be. Because the decisions and choices are going to be made to, by, for, and from the conjured self. It's not really that way. Never was.
So, just so that we're clear, what's being described here is the absolutely last thing that experience of contracted knowing wants to hear. It's the death of it. It's the end of it. It's the end of knowing.
How and why is it the end of knowing? Because it never had a beginning of knowing. What was mentioned earlier, knowing and doing, not necessary. Already being, but the being's not being done by anybody. It appears as though there's a separate being, but that's not it. It's not exclusively that way. That appearance is not an exclusive separate appearance of a body-mind that thinks it's living its own life. No. And it thinks it's being. No. It doesn't require any doing to be. Being is naturally coalescing, mixing, blending with the absolute. With absolutely everything and nothing inseparable. It's already naturally that way. Always has been that way. It is and it isn't.
So it's just gone, and then the illusion doesn't appear again.
Well, it doesn't. It's not only that it doesn't appear again; it's even stranger. When it goes, it's part of that is the recognition that it actually never happened.
Well,
What can happen is there can be certain recognitions or realizations that there's no me, but that isn't actually the end of the me of that experience.
So those glimpses are really different from the actual falling away.
In that, they are recognizable. In that, there's a contrast. Because in the contrast, there seems to be somebody that knows something happened. Mm-hmm. When there's no one left, no one knows there's no one left.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the individual, if there's a glimpse and it's not there, it will come back and go, oh, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Or I hated that. Either one, both of those can happen. That was terrifying. That was wonderful. That was amazing. That was completely unexpected. All those things.
But that in itself is not the returning of an individual. It's just.
Yes, it is.
But it doesn't really. I mean, because if it was actually glimpsed and seen that it is that way, then it makes sense to me that it never comes back. But the feeling is there, and it's like it never comes back, but you forget that it went away or something.
Oh, no. Nothing needs to be forgotten. Nothing needs to be forgotten because nothing was ever required to be known in the first place. How could anything be forgotten if it was not even known in the first place? That which is unknowable doesn't require a forgetfulness or something to be forgotten. No. A knowing doesn't have to be forgotten if the knowing wasn't knowable to begin with. The knowing of that which is knowable. If that which is thought to be knowable, it is only thought to be knowable. See, it's in the thinking, which is not necessary. Because cognizing and thinking and consciousness are synonymous with what? With knowing. And none of it's necessary. None of it matters. Does not. Because everything and nothing inseparable is the absolute. Always, always. So no matter what the conjured self conjures, it's not it. It's not necessary. It conjures a belief in separation. Conjures a belief that it's living its own life, to, by, for, and from itself. Conjures all that. But at some point, eventually, it recognizes that it never was that. Never was that to begin with. This is why what apparently appears to have collapsed really was a collapse of nothing. Nothing really collapsed to begin with. It was just the entertainment of the idea of self-identification. The idea that body-mind was separate from everybody and everything else. That idea of terminal uniqueness. No, those are all thoughts. Thought forms, thought patterns. Just as clouds going across the sky, all of it is unnecessary. None of it has to be entertained. And even in those thoughts that are thoughts to be required to be entertained, no. Entertainment of thoughts, that's not even necessary. It's not. None of it is. To be, you don't have to entertain anything. Yeah, sure, the body mind apparently appears to have preferences, yeah. It likes to eat certain types of foods. It has the sense of taste. It can taste food and different food that it consumes. It has to eat food to maintain its regulation, its natural functioning. But that's just it. The body mind is functional and it functions. Yeah. There's nothing special, terminally unique about that. It's just body minds appearing and they have function and that's it. It just apparently appears to be body minds appearing in a particular way, and so it begins to self-identify with itself and whatever it believes it's doing. And whatever it believes it's doing, it believes that because it knows it. It knows that. How does it know it? Because it's aware. How is it aware? Well, it believes it is aware because it's alive. Well, how is it alive? It's alive not of its own accord volition, by the way. It's simply alive to being alive. It's the aliveness, awareness to being aware. It's not doing that. It doesn't have to do that, and it doesn't have to know about that either. It's just being. Already naturally being, naturally coalescing, and it doesn't have to do anything about that. It's just a natural response to be going with the flow of the absolute.
You seem to forget that it went away. Something like that.
I'm not. You forget that you had a glimpse.
Yeah, you have the glimpse, and then you see that this is the only way it can be.
Yeah. And then me comes back, thinks it knows what happened, and tries to find it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. The end of me isn't knowing what happened, isn't knowing this is unconditional love. It's no longer looking for anything.
See? It's not in the knowing, it's not in the doing, not in the seeking. That's right. All of that was never necessary.
But nothing really changes because the illusion was never there.
Depends on how you talk about it. Absolutely nothing changes. And everything's different.
Yes. So someone could seem to be totally caught in the illusion of me, and nothing could change in terms of content. But
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
The me, because of the energy of it, attaches itself to the emotions and feelings that arises. It's sort of that's part of its search, actually, is taking responsibility or ownership of everything that arises. Because the sense of it is, if I can collect everything to myself, I will become whole.
It's another way of saying it. Yeah.
That has an effect on the thoughts and the feelings. It gives them energy. So they start to go around in sort of circles. I'm a bad person. If I were just better, this wouldn't be happening. Anything like that. Any of those things. When there's no one left, there's no one that attaches itself to those thoughts and feelings. So not only do they quiet down, but they don't get enough energy to go around in circles. Because in one sense, nobody really cares.
Then how was it ever possible for... if there is no one, how can there seem to be someone who attaches himself to everything?
Totally.
Because it was conjured, right? That's why the Birthday and Birthright of Jim Newman just said that. Yeah, totally, of course. But you see, again, here's an example of non-duality speech, and then the questioner is asking, but the questioner is not going to be satisfied. It's not always going to be satisfied with the answer, because it either is reluctant to ask any further or change the question using different words. So the response to what the questioner in this particular satsang was referring to the glimpse or anything that's thought to be a certain way. It doesn't matter. None of those thoughts that are entertained and none of these ideas that are conjured as though, oh, there was a glimpse once, but it collapsed. I recognize that it did, and no, it just never was in the first place. All these stories that are conjured, they're just conjured stories. They're all fictional, they're all made up, to, by, for, and from the conjured self.
Absolutely.
He asked how.
I don't know. There's no answer. It's a good question. There's no answer to that. I mean, I could talk a little bit about how it only happens in the dream of the individual, in the arising of a center, which there's not. That arising says that what's happening is real, therefore it's meaningful, purposeful. It's happening to me. And through that energy, it attaches and gives energy to thoughts. But how does that happen? It's just what seems to happen. Why does it happen? There's no answer to that. It's not logical. It's not logical to say that something that apparently happened never happened.
What do you mean with the end of knowing?
The end of knowing, the end of the knower, the end of experience.
There can't be an end to experience, there can't be an end to knowing, because the knowing never even mattered to begin with. So if there's a body mind claiming that it knows something, no, it never did. So it seemingly had a beginning, but it will also seemingly not have an end as well. It won't end. Although it can claim that it is no longer knowing anything, it is no longer claiming to seek that which it believes it needs to know. Information, gathering books, literature, going to satsangs, or even going to spiritual retreats, residentials, all of these different places and events that are thought to be attended for some particular meaning, reason, or purpose. No. It's either going to apparently appear to be a natural response to that which has always been, that there are no particular conditions that need to be met in order for a body mind to experience that which is seeking, and it believes that I must be missing some information I need to know. So if I'm missing information that I need to know, I need to continue seeking until I find it. That's not only what the seeker does, but the individual conjured self that lives in a world of separation will continue to believe that it needs to seek that which it has yet to know. And it will continue to look for books. It will spend a lot of times in libraries and will go online checking websites to try to understand this either a misunderstanding or a mistake of what it thinks that it is or believes that it is. It believes that it is a terminally unique, very special individual conjured self. It conjures this idea that it is very special and unique. And it reinforces that uniqueness via the fact that it has a birth name and a birthright, and has a birth certificate. And that it thinks in a particular way as nobody else can possibly conceive of thinking in some particular way. So a body mind is going to think in terms of the thoughts that it entertains. And the thoughts that it entertains, the thoughts that a body mind entertains conjures a belief, an idea that, well, what I know is a degree of knowing that nobody else possesses. I possess a degree of information and knowledge that not just anybody else knows about. That doesn't even matter, because that's not even going on. That which is thought to be known or knowable is not being apprehended as knowable as anything. So that which is thought to be unknowable or known doesn't even matter. It never will, never has, and it never will.
So I don't know, therefore I am not.
There's no I not to know. I and knowing are the same thing. I arises with the experience of knowing. So I never know I'm not.
And neither. I can neither know what I am or what I'm not. I am and I'm not. So if the absolute is and it is not, that means we are and we are not. Does it mean that? No, it doesn't actually mean it, but there is the same. It apparently appears to be the case, whereby if the absolute is and it is not, therefore we are and we are not. In other words, we're apparently appearing in space and time, but we're not of space and time. The absolute is absolutely everything and nothing inseparable, which includes all human corporeal appearances. It's that simple, really. Straightforward.
But you said it's the end of experience, right?
Yeah.
But you know when it's hot and cold and stuff like that.
Yeah, but nobody knows that.
Right, but still the same with it.
Sense is happening for nobody. Experience is a subject-object relationship. So the end of the experience is the end of the subject, which is the end of an object.
Didn't even have a beginning in the first place.
So I think I experienced that sometimes I'm more I and contracted, and sometimes I'm less. Like in a stress situation, I'm more there's more contraction and more I and more defense strategies. And then, when everything is easy, then I somehow forget that I'm here.
Yeah.
But this comes and goes.
Yeah, that's not really what we're talking about. More or less I. Just because you feel good doesn't mean there's less I. This isn't about feeling better or feeling less tense. The tension we're talking about is not objectifiable. It's so intrinsic to the experience of the body and the individual that it can't step back from it and say, there's less of it or more of it.
Another way of describing that is that the conjured self conjures the idea that it is somebody, that it is an individual, the specialty, the uniqueness of itself, to, by, for, and from itself. So it conjures the idea that there's this constriction that it can experience and feel in its own body. Those energetic movements are just freely moving energetic movements that run through the apparent appearance of a human corporeal form. But a body-mind experiences, and then it calls itself out, and it says, wait a minute, that's my experience I'm having. Wait, I feel constriction now, or I feel stressed out. I had a real bad day today at work. I went to work, I had a bad day because someone was talking to me rude. They spoke to me using rude languages. They were disrespectful. They used profanities when they spoke to me. See, because I matter. I think I'm important. So I'm going to feel very offended because I bring my respectfulness about other people to a certain level, and I expect the same in return. I expect reactions from somebody else to be congruent with mine. See, if there's no agreement that's going on, then it starts to be that somebody else is disagreeing. It's always that way. To, by, for, and from a conjured self. A conjured self will say, conjured self, of course, is just another term referring to the self that cannot get out of self. Well, it can't get out of an imaginary place. That's the bottom line right there. The conjured self believes in a reality that it has conjured for itself, and it cannot get out of a place that it is conjured for itself, to, by, for, and from itself. So that's how it kind of locks in to even go so far as saying, well, I admit, since self cannot get out of self, I admit that I can't do that, and I have no control over it, so I'll just let it do whatever it's going to do. And so I just have to go along with it. And just by going along with it, right there is still a degree of self-identification. That there's somebody there that's going along with something, or not going along with something. See, neither is the case. There is neither a conjured self that is going along with anything or not going along with anything. Going with the flow is a natural way that absolutely everything is and is not, or everything and nothing is inseparable, always, always. That is consistent. Apparently appears to be consistent, because whatever arises, whatever starts to be experienced to, by, for, and from a conjured self, a body mind, is not the way that it is, because it's not exclusively that way. It is both. It is and it is not. It is so and it's not so.
And thoughts are still coming and going. And even thoughts like, I should do that, or I'm watching something now. Even these kind of thoughts are still coming and going.
Yeah. I'm watching something now. I'm watching something
So
now.
me, I'm doing something.
No.
No?
No.
Just thoughts.
Thoughts, yeah.
And because the feeling to be someone is, you say something that you feel in the body, but also thoughts like, okay, now I'm looking the flowers.
Yeah.
And it's also...
No, that doesn't happen anymore. There isn't anybody to look.
what was thought to be somebody as a separate self, or as a conjured self, separate from everybody and everything else, there's an observer of flowers, as an example, is not what's happening. There's not a separate observer of anything. Flowers, chairs, tables, walls, ceilings, floors, cars, trees, anything that's identified as though it's a separate something, it's not so. It's not that way. It's not exclusively identifiable. The Absolute is not that. The Absolute is not exclusive to anything that can be identified. The Absolute is undefinable. It is too free, it is too radically free to be pinned down or to be categorized. Cannot. It's unknowable, it's inconceivable, it's indescribable, it's undefinable. Because the Absolute is absolutely everything and nothing inseparable. Always, always, in all shapes, forms, in all ways, shapes, and forms. Everything and anything can be conceived and cannot be conceived. Both that which is and is not. It includes absolutely everything. Anything. It includes absolutely everything. Nothing's left out. Nothing is singled out. Nothing is independent of itself, to, by, for, and from itself. Everything and nothing is inseparable. It's all interconnected. All of it's interconnected. It's likened to a river, and a body mind standing in the river. And then it gathers water, holds it in a container, and then begins to offer it to others, to sell it. Wait, you want to buy the river? Yeah, I have some. Just scooped it up in this container. That'll be £5, please. £5. No. We are and we are not. We're already coalescing, mixing, blending, binding, constantly, over and over, all along with the Absolute. However, wherever, whenever, however, in space and time and not of space and time, however the Absolute arises, it's going to arise as it apparently appears to be arising. And it could also be arising in ways that are inconceivable, that are unknowable. Both can arise as it apparently appears to be arising. And it's not arising as it apparently appears to be arising. Both combined are apparently appearing and not apparently appearing. It is and it is not. Both simultaneously, and that's not a paradox. Sounds like one. It only sounds like a paradox or a quandary, or it sounds complicated, to, by, for, and from a separate self-conjured conscious self that believes that they are separate from everybody and everything else.
Not even at the bad drivers. Nobody sees bad drivers, but bad drivers still apparently happen. and the wish for rockets in my car apparently arises.
So one could say you don't know who you are.
You don't either, though. We talked yesterday, I can't remember what the point was, about how the me doesn't follow thoughts to the end. You can't find you. That's what self-inquiry is about. It's the individual is like a nail in the sky. There's actually no support.
I like that picture.
Yeah.
So we can't do anything.
No. It's really hard for people to get this. It's really not that you can't do anything. Things happen, apparently. The message truly is, there's no you.
And this death of the me?
Yeah, is a dream. It's part of a story. It doesn't happen. The death of me is the recognition by no one that there never was a me.
And this recognition appears in some bodies and in other bodies never appears.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, and nobody can do anything.
Well, there isn't anybody.
Yeah.
The recognition doesn't actually have anything to do with the thing you're sharing, right?
The recognition has nothing to do with the thing that I'm sharing. There is you're talking about the recognition that there's no one.
Yeah.
That's a part of sort of the story of the message. But the message is truly, there's only what is and isn't. That's the message. That's the whole message.
What is
There's
that?
only what does and doesn't appear.
What is that? What is not usually?
What's that?
What is and what isn't?
Yes.
What do you mean with what isn't?
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly the conundrum for the individual. Do you understand what I mean? It wants to know that this is and isn't. It wants to know this is the absolute. And that hides what this is and sets up a structure where it looks for the next experience, hiding this as it is and isn't, by wanting to know what it is. Nobody does that. That's not something that someone chooses to do. There is absolutely no free will and choice. That is simply what seems to happen. That arising out of contracted energy in the body, a center that says I am arises, which says I'm real, which makes everything else appear to be real. The subject-object reality arises, and that reality, that subjective reality, then makes this appear to be real, and then creates the need to find that what's next, something that's going to make me feel better, the better experience, the next experience.
And this is what isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are we now?
I don't know.
Well done. Gold star. No, what isn't an object. And the point is, what is isn't an object. There's no such thing as what is. What is and what isn't is the unicity that's unobjectifiable, that is everything. And there's no knowing. There's no way to know what that is. That is simply unconditional aliveness. And the suggestion is, that's all there is. Even the experience that there's a subject and object is unconditional aliveness, appearing as a subject and an object, looking for unconditional aliveness, which is everything, already.
But there is knowing.
Well, I mean, like where my car is, but not what this is, and not where that apparent knowing comes from. There's simply the immediacy of what's happening, and that can appear as where the car is.
And there's no problem with the problems, no?
Yeah.
You say that's the...
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think that just a response to the expectation of the individual, that there really is a solution that fits its ideas of what it means to be nobody, or what it means to be enlightened. That everything's great, and I just live in a peaceful state, and that's just, for me, idealism.
And that tension is also made of unconditional love.
Absolutely.
So that's
Absolutely.
pretty nice.
Yeah. Not for anybody, though.
Yeah.
Because if it's somebody in there, then it sucks. And if there's nobody in there, it's not for anybody.
And even the appearing of killing someone is unconditional.
Absolutely. Hitler was unconditional love appearing as Hitler. People don't like that. They like to talk about love, they don't like the unconditional bit. Because it's the same as no thing, or what isn't. Unconditional is what isn't. It's the same ungraspable.
Same?
Ungraspable, unhavable, unknowableness. Unconditional.
I often have the experience of like feeling a tension coming up because of whatever, and in the first moment it can hurt me. It kind of crunches me down, whatever the thought is, and then I might notice, okay, there's something, and I look at it, and then it's like I was thinking that thought was my reality, and now I saw the thought, and something relaxes. Does that have anything to do with what you're talking about?
That's more in the direction of therapy. What the message is that the tension, the crushing, the recognizing, the letting go is all the absolute appearing is that. Nothing happened. The individual is in a world of things really happening. It's dependent on things happening because hope is in the future that what's going to happen is going to make its life better or good or fulfilled or whatever. The reality is, which is the death of the individual, is nothing really happens. This isn't really happening. It only apparently happened. So there's no...
Those apparent seeing through illusion experiences, aren't those somehow
You're talking about something, you're talking about really happening.
Yeah.
Really seeing through. Really da-da-da. Really da-da-da. Nothing, that's all dream. That's all dream world stuff. Nothing ever really happens. That's why you can't say, why your question ran into a brick wall, because you can't say that recognizing this happens. You can't say that the absolute relative, the revelation, happens, because it's never other. It's never other.
Yeah.
That is actually the end of happening, which isn't a happening. You could say it's a recognition for no one.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's only crazy if you try to understand it. Otherwise, it's just absolute simplicity.
Yeah, it's both
purity.
at the same time. It's
Purity.
But I can always there's like a millisecond of, yes, it makes sense, and then it's the mind, I don't know, and then there's...
The defense mechanisms come up until there aren't. And that won't have anything to do with you.
But now, when you speak like this, again, it sounds like I'm on the way there, and that what I'm going through right now is part of it.
But that's your projection, that's not suggesting. There's no suggestion that you're on your way.
Okay.
Well, we just got through the fact that this isn't the end of any way. There's the hiding of this, the hiding of this, the hiding of this, the end of hiding of this. This was never anywhere else.
I guess I have to go through it a few more times.
Absolutely not. How do you get closer to what is already?
Just what seems to be happening.
Yeah, well, but that's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
There seems to be a getting closer. And as long as there's an individual, it's a part of a process. This is not a process. It's the end of something really happening. You can't say the end of something really happening is something really happening. It's not.
So the individual always shifts between when there is something not certain, then it's more like fear, and at the moment when it's certain, it's like that, I can relax, and then again, if something is uncertain, it isn't clear, and then it's again in fear. Is this what the individual does?
There is no individual.
from this fear comes?
Fear of death. Separation and death are the same thing. There is no separation, there is no death.
That's cool.
Which death do you mean? The physical?
The only death is the death of the individual. The only death is the death of separation, the end of separation.
I tried to help a homeless for a time, and then I realized it's not really possible to help him. And then there was one thought that there is something that absolutely doesn't care if there is a homeless or if there is a me or if there is a person that is happy or unhappy. So that was a very short
Glimpse.
eine Vermutung.
Yeah, okay.
Is this...
I'm not sure what Vermutung means, but yeah,
Assumption.
an assumption. I would never use the word assumption. But you can glimpse certain aspects of what this is. And nothing does care. It's not that nothing cares, it's just, it's really the other way around. Nothing is needed. Nothing needs to change. Caring can arise, but nothing, this as it is already ultimately free. Ultimate, like there's nothing beyond. It's absolutely free. It's absolute freedom. And a homeless person, a suffering person, a happy person is absolute freedom appearing as that. So motion is completion. It's not, there's no need in the appearance for anything to arrive or become. It's already fulfilled, exactly as it is. Without intention, unintentionally.
There is no need?
For this to become,
Okay.
for the appearance to become anything, it's already fulfilled. So in that way, what you were describing, there's no need for it to be different. Because there's nothing actually wrong with it.
Yes. That's felt like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's true. Absolutely. That includes helping a homeless person. Or not.
But we don't really decide.
There is no you.
Right? Know that.
So every time I try to think what...
There isn't a you.
Okay. When there is thinking
Yeah?
what this could be, then
That's
I
what's
miss...
happening.
I miss... it's happening. But I don't miss anything. I just...
That's just part of the dream of the individual, that something needs to happen. That what's happening is real. What's happening is real. That experience hides this as it is. It is not real. That something's happening is real is a complete illusion. It's an illusion, meaning it has no reality at all.
At fear, and the fear that comes,
The fear,
yes, the fear that comes with this non-existing individual. And so it's also appearance. Just.
absolutely. It's unconditional love, fearing.
Could you explain, please, why, for example, the chair where you are sitting now is not real?
Oh, it's just not the chair. It's also the space. The words, the question, the body, none of it is real. It's not unreal.
It's not unreal.
No. No, it appears.
So it's real and unreal, or at the same time.
Or it's neither real nor unreal.
It's like
A paradox.
a shadow or a rainbow, for example. You can see a rainbow.
No. If the individual is seeing a rainbow, it's real. So there's somebody in there hearing these words, right? All there is sound. When nobody hears the words, it's silence sounding.
As the baby cries, he says, "What? What?"
What?
All right, Jim, that's too far. You forgot the other bit. What about me?
But for example,
That's something interesting to consider, though. Consider that. That particular appearance, apparent appearance of an incident, whereby the weeping is heard of a body mind. An infant. An infant that's reacting just as any other body mind of an animal. There's always reference and pointing to the human corporeal appearance. There are also body minds of animals. What makes the appearance of a body mind of an animal different than the body mind of a human? The human corporeal appearance. The differences may be visible, but those visible differences are one of innumerable differences. They can apparently appear to be distinctions of two separate different appearances, but it's just an apparent appearance of that which apparently appears distinctually different. The contrast. One body mind and then another. An animal body mind and a human body mind. Humanly corporeal and animalistically corporeal. And then there's the insect bodies. The appearances of insects and microorganisms at the microbial level. From the microcosm to the macrocosm. Absolutely everything's included. So all of the kingdoms of the microorganisms, the plant life, the plant kingdom, the insect life, the insect kingdom, the animal kingdom, the human corporeal appearance of the human species is included, along with the animal kingdom. And then you even have Earth-like planetary bodies throughout the infinite universe that are unknowable. Could simply be seemingly so, but not exclusively seemingly so, but seemingly so throughout the infinite universe. There could be billions of Earth-like planets and those apparent appearances of life forms upon all those other Earth-like planets throughout the infinite universe. Could also be considering conversations along these lines regarding what apparently appears to be a reality that includes absolutely everything and nothing inseparable, always, 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 consistently ad infinitum, apparent appearances of absolutely everything and nothing inseparable. The infinitudinal complexification of an infinite universe as the absolute appearing as an infinite universe. But it's only an apparent appearance. It's unknowable. It's undefinable. How everything and nothing is inseparable. It doesn't require an explanation to know about that which is everything and nothing inseparable. The absolute is unknowable. It's undefinable. It has no meanings, reasons, and purposes. Of its own accord and volition to appear as absolutely everything appears. Perfect, whole, complete. Perfect balance. It could also appear chaotic. It could appear in any way, shape, or form that the absolute may appear. It will appear that way and all other ways. Always, all ways.
The flowers now is a part of what is.
No, it's all there is.
Is?
It's everything. It's all there is. There's no a part of what is. What is nothing apart. It is and isn't.
And then if it's happening to live in the room, for example.
If the flowers get up and walk away.
This is real. If living in the room is happening, so the flowers are not anymore.
Well, that thought is that entire happening. There's nothing other than that thought of that happening. There is no possibility to create another happening that has a reality which one could theorize about. There isn't another reality. That thought, that happening, is everything.
Please say it in another way.
Yeah. I don't even know what I said. What the individual does is it lives in a world of separate objects and subjects. So it gives the impression that there are other realities, other wheres, other things, other instances, other than what's happening. That's the dream world. There's only what's happening.
Another way of saying that, here it comes again. Here's another way of expressing the English language using different terminology, different words, saying the same thing. Same statements, that body mind right there, that Neo-Advaitin, the birth name and birthright of Jim Newman, is expressing via the English language using certain terms, certain types of, well, a selection of words strewn together in a sentence and making statements regarding that which it believes is a description of the Absolute. Descriptions of the Absolute are not exclusively those descriptions to say that this is the way that it truly is, because it is always all ways. So no matter what words are used and what language that body mind is expressing, as a Neo-Advaitin, and it's not necessarily a self-professed Neo-Advaitin, however, it can use those terms because it is something that's recognizable. It is something that a body mind, a conjured self, can relate to. It can relate to that, but at the same time, it can also recognize via the satsang to starve the questioner that the questions that are being asked are not required. But once enough questions are asked by the conjured self, then it recognizes and realizes eventually it collapses and gives up and says, oh, I never was that I conjured. I never was that story of that body mind that believed it was separate from everybody and everything else. I never was that character, that birth name and birthright that was given to it in agreement by other conjured selves, other body minds that thought they were independent and that they were parents of a child or parents of another body mind, and that that daughter or son, a male body mind or a female body mind, was part of an exclusive family, a birth name birthright genealogically a particular way, with a genetic code, and that in that genetic code of a body mind there is the correlation, that there is correlation there that cannot be found in other correlations between other body minds, to say that there's a particular separate ancestral tree that's happening and branching off in the human species, and that each separate race is within the species of the human corporeal form, and that it's being segregated and categorized and defined. There it is again. The conjured self feels compelled to describe and name and categorize absolutely everything that it believes is separate, and it will name it and categorize it and put it together in subjective. It will place that way of thinking together in a subjective format. It will use a subjective format and say, this is the subject we are referring to today. We are referring to the human corporeal form that has genetic code. It has a genome, it has DNA sequencings that illustrates that body mind to appear in a particular way based on its DNA, based on its DNA strands, based on its sequencing of RNA factories of the DNA of a body mind, to illustrate that that body mind belongs to a particular family tree, ancestral tree, birthright. So it carries a birth name, carries it on and on, a surname. Names, categories, names, subjects, entitlements, that which is definable, definitions, taking the information regarding 2x4 from the conjured self and creating a story about that. The beginning of that body mind when it was born, and the end of that body mind when it dies. And when it begins, when it's born, it is issued a certificate of authenticity. The birth certificate is issued to that body mind. And it is considered a brand new, exclusively real body mind that's a brand new part of society now. So let's bring it aboard, and let's give it a name. Let's integrate it into society, the societal structure, so that it can live its own life within the societal structure based on the rules that are already in place that it must abide by. The previous presentation on this YouTube channel has gone over that particular subject already, so you can view that previous YouTube presentation on this channel, and you'll see about the societal structure that's mentioned there, taking the idea of societal structure and expanding on that.
So the individual will see a hand, and it will say, that hand belongs to and is that and all the other things. The reality is, that is infinite handing, and there's nothing other than that. That's everything. That's everything. That's everything. Sound everything. There's only everything. There's no object. There's no thing. Because there's no one. Thinking.
Bezogen auf Zeit
Yeah, same thing.
Nein, ich meine, jetzt ist die Hand und im nächsten Moment der Fuß.
Yeah, if you like.
Oder ist es immer alles?
Absolutely.
Also nicht nur jetzt und dann und dann und dann.
Absolutely.
Oder for her, die Hand und...
Yeah, but see, there isn't a her.
Ja, so...
No, there's only that. And that imagination of her hand and all that is everything. The individual likes to think there's other realities outside which it is separate from.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that arises is everything. There is no boundary.
Ja, but,
There is no position to know something else from. I know what you're saying, you don't know what I'm saying. Just
Yeah. See, the body-mind is going to express as though it is thinking in terms of responding to what is being said. The new Advaitin, that is the birth name and birthright of Jim Newman, is presenting non-duality, Advaita Vedanta, as a subject. There's no other way to address this 2 by 4 and from a conjured self that is still believing in that separation. It still believes that it is separate from everybody and everything else. It believes it's sitting in a chair, at a satsang, at a particular place, a point in space and time that is there. And that everybody else is somewhere else in their own fixed positions in space and time. See, this is another way of explaining what Jim Newman is trying to tell and express. Jim Newman, of course, the birth name and birthright, Jim Newman of that body mind, as a Neo Advaitin. And when we say Neo Advaitin, that is not to say that I'm giving him a label and that's all that he is. That all that particular male human corporeal form is visibly observable sitting in that chair, having sat sang there, and it's a pre-recording, and it's a recording of, this is a recording of a recording. And it's the same way of looking at it as though it's a fractal. You see sometimes that effect of windows that keep multiplying over and over and over again. If you point the camera into a mirror, and that camera in the mirror is showing another frame of a camera in a mirror, and a camera in a mirror, and a camera in a mirror, infinitely that way. So in a sense, the reality base as a dream world is that same consistent infinitudinal complexification of repetition. Reaction to a reaction to a reaction to a reaction. A frame and a frame and a frame and a frame. A flea on a flea, a flea on that flea, a flea on the next flea, a flea on a flea. Ad infinitum. Absolutely everything and nothing that's inseparable is the reality as a dream, but dream realities continuously and infinitely streaming. The streaming of the absolute is absolutely everything and nothing inseparable. That which is conceivable and that which is inconceivable. It is both. That which is observable and unobservable, knowable and unknowable, real and unreal. Always, always. Constantly, consistently, always, always.
just to be clear.
I don't know what the question. No, I mean just here.
Ich weiß, was du meinst. Du hast mich nicht verstanden, habe ich gesagt. Ich habe die Frage verstanden, aber die Antwort ist nichts angekommen.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, now if appearance here, millions of appearances.
Is a dream.
Every appearance thinks it's
So you're not listening.
the only one.
Absolutely. There aren't a million appearances. There's only what appears.
For the one who.
Yeah, you see, you go back again to an individual.
Yeah.
So there seems to be two realities. There's one where there's 20 different perspectives in the room, right? That's the dream of the individual. It arises out of a position that knows itself as a center, and therefore there are all these other centers out there. That's a dream.
Yeah.
That's a dream. It's an illusion. It's a trick. Not Burzley, but it's a trick. There aren't other positions because it isn't the first position. There are no positions.
Yeah.
Everything that arises is everything. There's
Yeah.
nothing apart.
Arises to
Complete.
where? To whom? To what?
Nowhere else.
To no one.
No one. Nowhere else.
But the arising is
Arising everywhere. Everywhereness.
You want this to make
The arising everywhereness. Yeah. So you want this to make sense? No, there isn't.
sense or what?
no.
No, there is no meaning, reason, purpose, or sense about the absolute. Regarding the absolute, no. See, the conjured self, okay, is always trying to make sense of its own reality it believes it is existing upon. It believes it existing upon a fixed position in space and time. It believes that it is in space and time, fixed in space and time, and that it could be in different positions in space and time. Exclusively, though, the exclusivity of the permanence. It believes it's permanent. That it had the beginning. It believes it had its own beginning with its own body mind. It was born with its own body. Okay? That's the beginning when it was born. 2 by 4 and from itself. Yeah? Given a birth name in agreement from other conjured selves. Perpetuated. And believed wholeheartedly that this is a permanent reality. That it's not a dream reality. It really is a dream reality, but it's apparently appearing to be a permanent reality. See, it's both. We are and we are not. The absolute is and it is not. And that is how it's all mixed together. It's always. See, it includes. There is no seclusion. There's no extraction, no separateness. And there's no addition. There's no new body being born. It apparently appears as though there's a new addition to society, a newborn baby being introduced into the world, see, in that way of thinking, into the world of permanence. Because the conjured self lives in that particular reality that's physically real and tangible. And then when it's doing this and rubbing fingers together, that's not a body mind rubbing fingers together in its own mind. It's in its own mind, its own way of thinking. It is these are my fingers that I'm rubbing together. That's how it thinks. It thinks in terms of terminal uniqueness. It thinks in terms of specialty, specialness, uniqueness, separate from everybody and everything else. Those are my fingers I'm rubbing together. This is my hand in front of my face. That's the hand in your face. And you have your own body, your own mind, your own eyes to see the world, to see the dream world. You're using your own eyes to see. No. Those are just eyes of a body mind. That's it. But if you're self-identifying with it, then you're the conjured self that we're referring to. And that's that idea of separation, of self-identification. Just turn that around. You don't need to turn it around, but in that way of thinking, just collapse all of those concepts and ideas and thoughts of beliefs. To believe that there's a body mind knowing about the absolute. It doesn't know the absolute. It thinks it does. It thinks it does. Especially the astrophysicist. Busily engaged with placing formulas on chalkboards and saying, this is theoretically so. No, the absolute is not theoretically anything. It is neither theoretically so or not theoretically so. The absolute is not theorized. It's not theoretical. No. The absolute is both real and unreal. It is absolutely everything and nothing inseparable. And it has nothing to do with the theories of everything. Everything cannot be theorized. Everything is not a theory. You cannot apply a theory to everything. No. That would be finiteness, finitudinal, and it's not. It is both finitudinal and infinitudinal. The finiteness is within the infinitudinal complexification of absolutely everything and nothing inseparable.
arises.
What's happening?
Like
when
here arises something outside something.
Yeah, but there is no outside. Outside of that thought of outside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't take the world for granted, but somehow, so then nothing makes sense.
Absolutely.
No word is useful.
Absolutely. There's just what's happening, there's no need.
So we can go to the park.
Well, there's no one to choose. But if going to the park happens, then that's what's happening. Send us an SMS and a picture.
No!
Schick uns ein Bild.
No!
Wenn du im Park bist. Es ist sicher schön.
Fucking crazy, man.
Oh,
That's very nice.
oh, it's unconditionally free.
Unconditionally
Boundlessly
crazy.
free.
Boundlessly crazy. And fucking
Absolutely.
insanity, man. Insane. Really.
So everything is fine.
Oh,
No,
crazy.
it's neither fine nor not fine. It's just what appears. Fine and not
Apparently.
fine, good and bad, right and wrong,
Yeah,
only
dualities.
arise in the story of the individual.
Yeah,
because
which
it
are
needs
dualities.
a path. It's on a journey
Yeah.
to something better.
Mm.
When there's no one on a journey, then it is revealed that this has no intention.
Yeah.
It doesn't need any. It's already complete.
Yeah. Conditional. See? A conditional path, a means to an end. Okay, I'm going to go on a spiritual quest now. I started back in the 1990s, and now I'm in, it's nearly 2020. It's 2020 next year. And I'm following a calendar because societal structure tells me in the societal structure, they follow time. They follow calendars. They follow days of the week, weeks and months and years. That's what I'm programmed to learn. See? I'm programmed. I learned it. It's a knowledge base. I know it. I know it along with the rest of society. And see, there's separate other people that have lived their own life. They went to certain schools. They learned certain subjects. To a certain degree, they learned. And to a certain degree, they know. But there's still an agreement there, and we're still all interconnected. But we're separate. We're a separate society from the animal kingdom. We're a separate society, or we're a separate group of a species of entities, groups of entities, separate from the animal kingdom, separate from the plant kingdom, separate from the insect kingdom. No. None of those separations. Nothing is inseparable. Everything and nothing is inseparable. The conjured self continues to think that way. The conjured self refuses to budge. It refuses to go along with the absolute. It has created unnecessary self-afflicted sufferings. It has created and conjured its own suffering that it believes it is experiencing, but it is not. It only thought it was. So it conjured the idea of separation and uniqueness and specialty, and it reinforces that with that which is identified in a societal structure because I'm part of society. I don't want to be left out. I don't want to feel alone, so I'm going to go along with it. I mean, it felt right at the time. It seemed to be the way to be. The authority figures were telling me, that I should be going to school, and then beliefs. I was told that I need to go to church, so I went. My parents took me, although they took me against my own accord and volition, free will, of choice, and I didn't really want to go, but I went along with it. I didn't really know what was going to happen, what was going on. I didn't understand it. And then the moment I understood it, then I thought, well, I had to believe it. I have to believe that which I'm understanding. If I don't believe and go along with it, then I'm going to feel alone. I'm going to feel separate from everybody and everything else, I'm going to feel as though I don't belong. So the reinforcement of separateness also goes hand in hand with belonging. Because there's a separate society that's on a grid. And if you're not part of that grid, then you are going to be banished, or you're not going to be provided those provisions that provide that particular body mind that is on the grid or is part of the societal structure to allow it to have access to all the amenities, all the benefits of being part of a societal structure. You're part of society, you pay taxes and you have a job and you're economically viable and you get paid monetary payment for your services that are rendered of a skill set of some type. Then you are on the grid, then you're part of society, then you don't feel so alone, so lonely, and there's help out there for you. You need therapy, if you need therapy and you're having trouble getting along with other people, there's these services that are provided. See? So that reinforces the idea that you need help. Right? That the individual needs help. If it can't help itself, it's going to seek help from another separate person, another separate individual. Because it can't figure it out for its own self, so it needs some help. Can you help me out with that, please? Oh, really? How much is it? Your service? Oh, in order for me to get help, I need to go to a clinic. And, well, here in the United Kingdom, there's the NHS, and there's certain treatments that you can receive. But then again, depends on what it is. Depends on what condition that you believe you might be suffering from. Is it in the body or is it in the mind? You could be suffering from a mental affliction or a physical affliction in the body. It might be a cancer, or it might be some other form of illness, so named, certain names. There's of the mind, of course. There's Alzheimer's. There's dementia. There's all these different conditions of the body and mind that have been identified. See? Categorizing, labeling, giving a name. Well, we have to give it a name so we can understand what we're dealing with. See? Well, what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with a real, tangible, physical reality? Well, the Conjured Self believes that. Sure it does. So it's going to think in terms of permanence. It's going to think in terms of permanently living its own life, and that eventually it will have an end to its life, and that's when the death certificate's issued. See, when a body-mind is born, here's your birth certificate. And when a body-mind dies, here's the death certificate. Are there any surviving family members? Surviving. Well, there could be an aunt or an uncle or a brother or sister that's left behind. They're still around, and they are going to be legally responsible for taking care of the affairs that may have been part of society. That since it passed away, it can no longer be part of society, but it had certain responsibilities, and it may have had some credit card payments that were due. So the next of kin that's in the arrangement of a life insurance policy, as an example, are going to be financially liable, financially responsible for, especially for married couples. If one or the other in that couple passes away, the one remaining, the surviving member, a surviving family member, is going to be, responsible for anything left over that's owed back to the system. So there's a reinforcement of the conjurings of a self-conjured conjured self. The reinforcement of self-identification with the self, of separation, duality. That's how it's reinforced.
And everything includes every thought, every feeling, every movement, all of it.
Yeah.
This is great, this is bullshit, I'm afraid, I'm not,
Well,
this is good,
all
this is
of it, all
horrible, there are
duality.
ghosts, there aren't ghosts. All
Yeah.
of that is completion appearing. It's unconditional freedom appearing. It can appear as anything.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
When you talk like this, are you aiming the reasoning mechanism, like when showing the people that's not?
There's no one here.
That's not what I wanted to ask.
No, but you're asking if there's an intention. And for there to be an intention, there would have to be an experienced need that something needs to change. And that would only arise if there were an individual. So I just cut to the chase and said there's no one here. There is no intention.
Okay.
There's just the responses. This is already complete. Because the question is, what needs to happen, or what can I do, or any of those things.
Yeah.
And the response is always,
Yeah.
nothing needs to happen.
That's right.
There is no you.
That's right.
This is already complete.
The response is always about addressing the knowing and the doing. Nothing needs to be known or figured out regarding the absolute as the infinitudinal complexification of absolutely everything and nothing is inseparable ad infinitum. Nothing needs to be known about that. Nothing needs to be done about it. Nothing can be done about it. Nobody can do anything about the absolute. Nothing needs to be done about the absolute. Nothing needs to be known about the absolute. Knowings and doings are not required for the absolute to be as the absolute is, infinitudinal complexification, as everything and nothing inseparable, ad infinitum. Nothing needs to be done about that. Nothing needs to be known about it. So, therefore, stop it. Give it up. Quit doing that. Because you're not part of that, see? You're not part of that distortion that continues to believe, well, I'm important, I have my life I'm living, leave me alone. I know what I'm saying, I know what I'm talking about. Since I know what I'm talking about, then you people that are neo-Advaitins, all this non-duality nonsense, that doesn't make any sense. That's craziness. It's stupid. Doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to ignore you guys. You know what? Have a good life, whatever. See? That could be also the attitude of the conjured self. The self-conjured self could think in terms of exclusivity. It's going to think, well, there's those neo-Advaitins over there, and then you have your non-dualities there, the non-duality speakers over here, and the ones that are wearing the orange robes, and you have the bald-headed ones, and then the ones that display, a picture of a guru next to them, like Roger Castillo, or, it could be a body-mind could be presenting itself in a particular way, and if it self-identifies with that, well, then that's separation right there, and that's not what this message is about. This message is not about any of those things. It's not about a spiritual teaching. It's not about a religion. It's not about a belief. The Absolute does not require beliefs or spiritual traditions to follow or worship to be going on, and deities and all that crap. All of that's unnecessary. It's all conjured. All that sort of thing is conjured.
The individual can't help but have the experience of being on a journey. There is no journey. Every movement, every step, every thought, every action is the absolute happening. It doesn't actually move. It doesn't actually have a consequence. It's compulsion.
Dirty underwear.
When you say the absolute sharing, it sounds like for me, it's like you're
Not for you.
removing the.
Sounds like for me.
reasoning
Did you hear that?
mechanism.
Did you? I'm sure you did hear that. Notice how you said for me. Right there, right in the butt. Immediately. See, he didn't interject there. Neo-Advaitin, the birthright Newman. When the questioner was saying for me, right when he said for me, no, it's not for you. It's not to, by, for, or from the conjured self. It calls itself me, mine. Not mine and not yours. It's not about you and me. It's not about any of those me's. It's not about I, it's not about you, it's not about me, it's not about any of these separate self-identifications of a self. To say I, me, mine, yours, theirs, ours. No. No, none of those self-identifiers. They're not applicable. They never were. Never were applicable regarding the absolute.
From it, like how that chair was made, how that was brought here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for you, it's like just appearance.
No, not at all. It just doesn't have to separate the chair from the making and all the rest of it as something real. It's just pointing out that the chair isn't real, nor is it unreal. But neither is the thought of how it was made, or the feeling that there's some intention here. It's all inclusive. The only thing that's being undermined is something that's already not, and that's the experience of what's happening is personal or real. That there's a central knower to it.
That's right. It's
That's
not exclusively real, not exclusively personal. That's right. No, it doesn't have to be that way, right or wrong.
It's completely unreal.
But there's an agreement in that expression. In these
No.
statements.
No, the individual is really completely unreal.
Or maybe it's only real for itself.
Absolutely.
Two
That's
by
the dream.
four. Itself. 2 by 4 and from itself. Yeah. Conjured.
To be not two.
Yeah.
The experience was no experience.
Exactly.
Yeah. How
Now that's
can it be?
impossible. What I'm talking about is impossible, but what you're talking about is really impossible. The experience of no experience. Because what you're doing is the individual is so certain in its own isness that it assumes that there's an individual in everyone else, and it can't imagine what it would be like what there weren't anyone there. It has no idea what that's like,
Yeah.
and it never will.
Yeah.
It's just because here, I don't know where there is no here, but there's since ages the comparison which should have been better, or which I
Shoulda, woulda, coulda?
would be
No.
better if I don't
It's not about
do
shoulda,
this,
woulda, coulda.
would be
Nope.
easier and whatever.
No, there's nothing easier, nothing harder. There's no contrast,
Sometimes it gets lighter.
no distinctions. There's no exclusivities.
I mean, if it only
no.
sucked, it wouldn't be a problem. The problem is it sucks sometimes and doesn't suck other times. And that's the problem. If you were always depressed, that wouldn't be an issue. Is that you're sometimes happy, that's the problem. The individual is so invested in the experience of itself
Yeah.
that it's almost a disappointment for this to be it.
Yeah. Yep.
For all of its effort and all the things it did to
Not
have
good
been
enough.
worthless and or useless.
Yeah. Has to have a reason, meaning,
And it's
purpose to
already-
be.
And it's not for it. It can't have it. No.
That's right. It's not 2 by 4 and from it.
To try to use this as a therapy, though, hoping that that's going to happen, would be very unintelligent.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
This idea that by watching my thoughts and watching them coming back.
Watching your thoughts, there are no thoughts that are yours.
Sense enough.
See, he's not even addressing it. I would say it, nip it right there. Nip it right in the bud right there when he just said that. My thoughts. Nobody has thoughts of their own. The moment that a conjured self claims that it has thoughts of its own, there, it's already self-identifying with itself. It's already singling itself out. See? Right there. The moment that that conjured self makes that statement, it says, my thoughts. If it says my thoughts, it believes it is thinking its own thoughts and their original thoughts. And no other body mind can ever conceive of the thoughts that that particular body mind is thinking. See, it believes that it is thinking of exclusive thoughts that are original, that nobody on the entire planet can harbor or carry thoughts of a particular type. Nobody else can think that way. No. That's not it. Of course not. Thoughts can be entertained of all types and can be thought about in any body mind. But that does not make them exclusive, does not make them unique and singled out. They're just simply thoughts. They're not your thoughts and they're not my thoughts. They're just simply thoughts. Just as there is not my compassion, my type of compassion, or your type of compassion, it's a very unique type of compassion, there's just compassion.
You can't do that.
Can't do it.
Well, the claim of I is I am the subject.
Yeah.
So what
See?
subject is watching the eye?
Just awareness. Sort of awareness. And that will weaken and sort of break through. It's my plan.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
There's no one to escape.
Somehow that as a process would be more fruitful than just completely being involved in thoughts, not really thinking about them.
That arises out of the experience of the individual, that there needs to be something fruitful. Yeah, that something needs to happen. That it's not okay. That it's not already complete. That's an illusion. Even the experience of incompleteness is complete. There's nothing incomplete about the experience of incompleteness.
No!
There's nothing that needs to change.
It's just an idea.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's an experience.
That's
You're just
beautiful.
described. That's what's happening.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Those kind of expressions.
That is perfection.
Thoughts, yeah. It's
It
already,
has no opposite. It
yeah,
doesn't
it's
need to
already
change.
set. It's already set up.
It's
Sure.
purity.
Yeah, absolutely, it's already
Appearing is
set
that
up.
experience.
Yeah.
Why not? Why shouldn't freedom appear as the experience of being incomplete?
For me, it's the idea that something will
I know.
wake up.
I know.
Something will
Yeah.
more vividly clear. And
Yeah. More. That's what the individual always needs. More. There isn't enough.
Never
There
satisfied.
isn't enough for the individual.
Yeah. Never satisfied.
The individual is like a bowl with no bottom.
Keep filling, keep going through, yeah.
but there's still a sort of sense that awareness is more
What we're discussing,
better.
what we're discussing now, isn't a sense. It will never be within your experience. It will never fulfill what you're describing.
So I lost it. It will never fulfill what I'm describing.
The experience or the feeling that being aware, changing things, being distant and all that is somehow going to bring you to an end. That experience will never be fulfilled. that experience is duality. It's an illusion. There isn't two. If there's somebody in there, looking out here, that experience will be dissatisfying. There'll be separation. There'll be the need to be a good person, the need to ask the right question, the need to behave in a certain way, because there's a position there which recognizes another real position, separation, which then that energy wants to overcome. That'll never, ever happen. What the individual can't imagine, because all of its imaginations of the solution of the problem of itself have itself in it. It can't imagine a reality without itself. Even the effort to imagine a reality without itself arises out of itself. And so the suggestion is, there is no individual, and it will never know that. Separation is an illusion. There isn't anyone in there looking over here. What's being perceived is everything. There aren't two. There's only unicity, and you can't have that. You can't grasp it. You can't know it. You never will. Nobody does.
And there is no need to.
Absolutely.
So many times people have talked about meditation and the cultivation of
Not here.
awareness. No.
This isn't a teaching, and it's not a spiritual message. There's absolutely nothing in this for you. It doesn't even recognize you as real.
So many people seem to arrive at
Those are teachers.
teachers.
Teachers that are there to help you. They tell you should be aware, meditate, listen to vegetarian music, eat white rice, be aware. They ask questions which you can't deny because you don't know who you are, saying, "Are you ever not aware?" Or things like that. And you're like, "Oh, that sounds really profound." Sorry. I'm not judging any teachers. Nobody's doing it. There's no teacher to judge. It's just what happens. The message here is, awareness is the same thing as consciousness, is the same thing as knowing. They're all a part of a dream, of duality. That there is no need. That need arises out of the illusion that something happening is real. This is radical non-duality. It's not non-duality for you. It's radical non-duality. There is no you. It's already not two. There's no you to bring about not two. It's already not two.
Yes, I don't have any problem with it. It's not. It's just so many people seem to have done meditation, got, they do their hours and hours of meditation, and then eventually something sort of broke through. Cultivating awareness, and then or listening to talks for so long, it became the talks again.
Well, I understand what you're saying. That's not on offer here. There's nothing on offer here. There's no recognition that there's a real individual with free will and choice that could choose to do anything to find what's missing. That's just simply a dream that arises out of the experience that there's true duality, which can be overcome. The message here is there isn't. There's not two. The appearance of separation is the absolute appearing.
Processes like awareness, cultivation or meditation, aren't they so that people can let go of their mistaken duality quicker?
I mean, the process is to attach the experience of I to awareness. Then there are certain realizations that arise as the I realizes itself to be out of existence, independent of the body and the brain. So it realizes God. It realizes that everything that happens, because it is then the awareness that arises, that everything happens within it. It is no longer affected by what happens. It is the purveyor or the overwatcher of everything that happens, the knower, the supreme knower of everything that's happening. That's the experience. So what? So what?
So
sounds good.
So you mean that's what people get as the result of that?
Absolutely. That's the goal of self-inquiry, well, not of meditation, but self-inquiry.
Yeah. Then there's, like what you're saying, is one beyond this, which is
the end of me. It's much. See, when that happens, the realizations are quite manifoldy. I mean, there are a lot of them. So what you can share and what you can tell people about truth and reality and everything is really quite broad and big and complicated. It can get quite complicated. The longer these teachers are around, the more complicated their teaching become, because the more distant they become to the experience of being an attached individual. For me, it's sort of traveling in the psychic dream of the individual. That's just what it seems like. So what? It only matters in a reality where there's good and bad, and right and wrong, and better and worse. It only works within that reality. And the suggestion in this meeting is that reality only arises in the dream of the individual, in the dream of separation, and that in reality there is no separation. There is no separation. There is no real here and no real there. So there is no meaning or purpose. There is no free will and choice. There is no intention. It is already complete. And that includes doing all that other stuff, which nobody does.
It's not as though I'm just trying to sort of advertise spiritual paths, it's more,
it makes more sense.
Extra hint as to
it makes total more sense than what's being shared here.
Yeah.
It totally fits.
Yeah,
it totally fits to your experience, because what it's saying is there is duality, there is something wrong with you, and if you're a really good person, you can find something better. Totally fits to the story and the need of the individual, and to the experience that this is incomplete and that it has intention. Why not? It's a part of the dream of the individual. There is nothing here that's trying to get rid of that. There's no judgment about what happens on that level about that. bad drivers or something else. But trying to find God or trying to attach and all this, why not? Nobody does it. You didn't choose to come here. You don't choose to go to whoever you go to and learn these other things. It's just what happens. It doesn't matter. Literally, it doesn't matter. It has no consequence. And there's no suggestion here that you shouldn't do that.
I guess what it is I'm thinking, you explain these things to us now. And so what would be the additional things that I could do to you know what I mean, bring it on a bit better?
You're missing the main point. There's no you.
Okay. Go with that then. Then I'll focus on that one.
There's no choice. There isn't anyone in there. When this is heard as concepts, it will be applied to the individual. Will take it on board as something it then knows and try to apply it.
Always.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There's no individual.
Yes.
There's no one that has that free will and choice to or not to. Trying not to apply it's exactly the same energy as applying it. This is either heard, recognized, or not, and it makes no difference. There's nothing better. There's nothing special here. There's no authority, there's nothing special. There's complete ordinariness. Boring ordinariness. It's not wantable. I appreciate what you're sharing. I appreciate it.
So this does not come from the brain, right? The brain is just a story within this.
Yeah, there's no brain. Yeah.
So crazy that we actually don't have anything to do with it.
Totally. It has nothing to do with you. Because there isn't one.
Yeah.
Yeah.